September 1959, Kinney County, Texas, the brush country west of San Antonio. The drought kills Asa Easley's grass. His cattle starve down to a few head. The bank note comes due, and he cannot pay it. A man from an oil company drives out across the caliche with a contract and a fountain pen and tells the old rancher to sign. Asa Easley is 68 years old, and he has worked this ground for 50 years. Today, a stranger means to take it for the price of a used truck. Here is the story. The Easley place is 1,100 acres of hard mesquite and limestone, the kind of country that takes 10 acres to feed one cow. Asa's father drove the first cattle onto it in 1889. Asa took it over in 1909, the year he married Della. They buried 2 children on a rise behind the house and raised no others. For 50 years it has been just the 2 of them, the land and whatever the year decided to give. Asa does everything himself, or did. He digs the post holes. He pulls the calves in the spring. He rides the fence line on an old gray horse, because the truck won't start half the time. He carries the note in his head and pays it down a little every fall, and most falls it gets a little smaller. Then the rain stops. It stops for 2 years. The grass burns off brown in the first summer and does not come back the second. The tank by the windmill cracks dry. Asa sells his cattle a few at a time, at the bottom of the market, because a hungry cow brings nothing. By the end of the second dry summer, he is down to 9 head and a horse, and the note at the bank in town is 60 days past due. The bank does not want the ranch. The banker is a local man, and he knew Asa's father, but the bank is the bank, and the rules are the rules, and the letter comes anyway. That is when the oil man finds him. He drives out on a Tuesday in a long, pale car that does not belong on a caliche road. He wears a gray suit that costs more than Asa's last 6 cows put together. He sits at Della's kitchen table and drinks her coffee, and he is friendly, very friendly, and he has a contract in a tan leather briefcase. He has heard, he says, that times are hard. He is sorry to hear it. His company would like to help. They will lease the mineral rights under the Easley place. They will pay good money. All Asa has to do is sign. Asa Easley cannot read the small print. His eyes went years ago, and he never had much schooling to begin with. Della reads what she can, but the contract runs 4 pages of close type and lawyer's words, and the oil man keeps a friendly hand resting on the pages and keeps turning to the last one, the one with the line, and tapping it with his pen. Across the yard, a battered pickup truck turns in off the county road, trailing steam from under the hood. A big man gets out. Brown leather jacket, dark Stetson. He has been driving the back roads out of Bracketville, and his radiator has boiled over in the heat. He does not know these people. He only wants water for his truck. Nobody recognizes him yet. Della comes out to the porch to meet the stranger, the way ranch people do. She is glad of any reason to leave the kitchen and the man at her table. The big man tips his hat. He needs water, he says, for the radiator. He saw the windmill from the road. Course, Della says. Cook'll show you the tank. You'll stay for coffee. It is not a question. Out here it never is. The ranch hand, Cuco Vela, walks the stranger to the windmill with a bucket. They fill the radiator slow, letting it cool first so it won't crack. While they wait, the big man looks back at the house, at the long pale car parked wrong in the yard, at the city hat on the rack inside the screen door. Who's the fella in the suit? He asks. Cuco spits. Oil company. Been here 2 hours. Won't leave till the old man signs. The big man says nothing. He carries the bucket back himself. Inside, the oil man is still tapping the last page. Asa has the pen in his hand. His hand is shaking, not from fear, from age, from 50 years of wire and rope and post-hole diggers. Della stands behind his chair with both hands twisted in her apron. It's a fair price, Mr. Easley, the oil man is saying. More than fair, and it solves your little problem at the bank, doesn't it? Today, you sign, I drive to town. The note's paid by 5 o'clock. You keep your home. You go on just like always. Only now there's money coming in. It sounds like rescue. That is how the good ones always sound. The stranger sets the water bucket down by the door. "Mind if I sit?" he says, and he sits, uninvited, at the end of the table. And he takes off his hat and sets it on his knee. The oil man's smile tightens. "This is private business, friend. I'm just resting my truck." The big man pours himself coffee from the pot. "Don't mind me. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches." Asa lifts the pen toward the line, and the stranger, easy, the way a man asks to see a horse before he buys it, says, "Mind if I read that first?" The room goes still. "It's not your business," the oil man says. "No," the big man agrees, "but it's his, and he can't read it, and you know that. So let's read it out loud, all of us together, before anybody signs anything." He holds out one big hand across the table. He does not reach for the contract. He just leaves the hand there, open, waiting. And there is something in the way he leaves it there that the oil man cannot argue with. After a moment, the 4 pages slide across the table. The big man reads slow. He reads every line. The kitchen clock ticks. Della stops twisting her apron. He reads to the bottom of page 3, and his face does not change. But something behind his eyes goes cold and flat and quiet. It is not a mineral lease. The first 3 pages say lease in big friendly type. But page 4, in the small print, in the lawyer's words Asa cannot see and the oil man kept covering with his hand, is a deed, a sale, the whole 1100 acres, the house, the well, the cattle, the graves on the rise, conveyed in full to the oil company for $4,000, the exact amount of the note at the bank, to the dollar. The money coming in is one payment, the first and the last, and the price of the entire Easley ranch is the size of a debt the oil man already knew, down to the penny, before he ever drove out. Have you ever watched someone get cheated slow, in their own kitchen, with a smile and a cup of your own coffee? It does something to you. It makes a quiet thing in you go very still. The big man sets the 4 pages down on the table. He squares them up, neat, the edges even. Then he looks at the oil man for the first time. "You drove a long way," he says, "to steal an old man's whole life for the price of a tractor." The oil man's smile is gone now. "That's a binding contract," he says. He's holding the pen. Once he signs, he hasn't signed. He's going to. "No," the big man says. He isn't. He picks the 4 pages back up. He folds them once, lengthwise, the way you'd fold a letter. And then, without hurry, without heat, the way a man tears a bad check or a losing ticket, he tears the contract in half. Then in half again. He sets the pieces in a little pile in the middle of Della's kitchen table. The oil man comes up out of his chair. "You can't. Do you have any idea what you've... That's company property. It's paper." The big man's voice never rises. Not once in any of it. "It's not signed. It's not filed at the courthouse. It's not worth the ink. You drive back and you tell whoever sent you that the Easley place wasn't for sale. Tell them a fellow was passing through. And the bank?" The oil man is reaching for it now, the only card he has left. "The note's due. You tear that up. He loses the ranch anyway. By Friday. To the bank, instead of to me. You've done him no favors, friend. No favors at all." He could have stopped there. He had already torn up the swindle. The stranger could have put his hat on and carried his water bucket back to his truck and driven on to Bracketville and never thought about it again. The contract was dead. His part was done. He owed these people nothing. He had never seen them before that afternoon and would likely never see them again. But instead he reaches into his coat. He takes out a long checkbook and a pen of his own. He asks one question, to Asa, quiet. "What's the note?" "The whole of it. Today." Asa's voice has gone to almost nothing. 4,000 and change. 4,100, near enough, with what's behind. The big man writes the check standing up, leaning over the kitchen table. He writes it for 5,000. He tears it out and sets it in front of Asa, face up. 4,100 kills the note, he says. The rest puts cattle back on your grass when the rain comes. And it will come. It always comes. Asa Easley stares at the check. He does not pick it up. His old hands stay flat on the oilcloth. "Mister," he says, "I can't take this. I don't know you. I'll never pay it back. I'm too old to ever pay it back. It isn't a loan." "Then I can't." "You can." The big man stands up. He picks his hat up off his knee. 50 years you held this ground through worse than a dry spell, I'd guess. A man holds a thing 50 years. The country owes him the next 2 years of rain. Consider it the country settling up. Wayne does not move toward the door. 1 second, 2, 3. Then he looks at the torn pile of paper on the table, and back at the old couple. "Cash the check Monday," he says. "Pay the bank yourself, in person, so the banker sees your face and not a lawyer's. And keep that," he nods at the torn contract, "somewhere you'll see it. So the next slick fella who drives out here, you'll remember what they look like." Della Easley has her hand pressed flat over her mouth. Cuco Vella has come to stand in the kitchen door, and he has taken his hat off without knowing he did it. The oil man snatches up his briefcase and his city hat and goes. The screen door bangs. The long pale car turns around wrong in the yard, knocking over a bucket, and goes back down the caliche road too fast, trailing dust. Nobody watches it go. They are all looking at the man in the brown jacket. It is Cuco who says it. Quiet, in the doorway, almost to himself. "That's John Wayne, Senora. That's John Wayne." The big man is already at the door with his water bucket. He stops. He does not turn all the way around. "I'm just a fella whose truck overheated," he says. "That's all anybody needs to know." Then he is out on the porch, and down the steps, and pouring the last of the water into his radiator in the long gold light of the afternoon. He gets in. The engine catches. He raises one hand out the window. Not a wave, just a hand lifted easy. And the truck rolls down the caliche road toward Bracketville, toward the half-built Alamo waiting for him in the brush, and the dust comes up behind it and hangs there. On the kitchen table, 4 torn pieces of paper, and beside them, a check, face up, that Asa Easley still has not touched. Asa Easley cashed the check on Monday. He drove to town in the truck that would not start, and it started. He paid the note in person, $4,100 in change, and the banker counted it twice and shook his hand across the desk. He bought 8 head with what was left, and turned them out on the burned ground to wait. The rain came that next spring. It always comes. It came hard and green, and the grass came up over the caliche like it had been waiting 50 years to do it, and the tank by the windmill filled and held. Asa ran cattle on the Easley place 11 more years. He never sold an acre. He never signed an oil lease, not the bad kind, and not the good kind either, though good ones came later, after they hit the field 3 counties over, and the leasing men got honest, because the Easley place suddenly had neighbors who'd struck oil. Asa turned them all down, the honest ones too. He had seen what the paper could do. He kept the cattle and the grass and the graves on the rise, and that was enough. Asa Easley died in 1970, in the front room of the house his father built, 80 years old. The ranch clear and free and his. Della lived 4 years more. The place went to a nephew's family who run cattle on it still. John Wayne drove on to Bracketville that September afternoon and finished building his Alamo in the brush and made his picture. It cost him most of what he had, and he nearly went broke on it. He never spoke of the ranch in Kinney County, not to a reporter, not in an interview, not in any letter anybody ever turned up. Della Easley told the story, to her church, to her kin, the way a woman tells the one thing that happened to her that she could never quite explain. That is most of how it ever got out at all. $5,000. One afternoon. 1 overheated radiator on a back road. 1,100 acres held. 11 more years of cattle. A note paid in a man's own hand while the banker watched his face. All of it grew up out of a stranger sitting down uninvited at a kitchen table and asking to read 4 pages of paper out loud. The ranch is still there. It is still a working cattle ranch in the hard brush country of Kinney County, west of San Antonio, where it takes 10 acres to feed 1 cow. If you turn off the county road at the cattle guard and follow the caliche to the house, You will see the windmill first, and then the porch. Inside the house, in the front room, there is a small frame on the wall. Behind the glass is not a deed and not a medal. It is 4 pieces of an old contract, torn by hand in September of 1959, and carefully taped back together along the tiers so the words still read. 3 pages that say lease in big friendly type, and 1 page, the 4th, in the small lawyer's print that says something else. Della had it framed herself. Under it, in her own hand on a square of paper, she wrote 1 line. The day a stranger read it out loud. The afternoon sun comes through the front room window and lies across that glass for a while every day. Then it moves on off the wall, and out past the porch. The cattle are on the grass, and the grass is green, because the rain came back, the way he said it would. If this story reached you, do me a favor. Pass it on. Share it with a veteran in your life. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. There are more Duke stories coming. And unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.